Billionaire father sees black waitress let disabled son lead a dance step and then changes her life forever. The silence that fell over Harrington's Boston's most exclusive restaurant was so thick it seemed to have weight. Conversation ceased, cutlery froze in midair, and dozens of eyes fixed on the small space between the tables. 12-year-old Noah Bennett was visibly shaking, his knuckles whitening as he gripped his braces for courage. His legs, trapped in metal braces, wavered as he reached out to Maya Carter, the restaurant's only black waitress. The live piano had just begun a soft melody, and the boy's impulse to ask someone to dance came without warning. "Sir, control your son." Manager Thornton's sharp voice cut through the silence. "That's inappropriate. This is not a dance hall, and our employees are not here to entertain children." William Bennett, owner of Bennett Enterprises and one of the richest men in the country, swallowed hard, his face tightening with a mix of shame and protectiveness. It was the first time he had taken Noah out to dinner in public since the accident that had partially paralyzed his legs 3 years earlier, a mistake he would not repeat. "Noah, sit down." The order came low but firm, his voice betraying a flicker of fear for his son's vulnerability. Maya remained motionless, her gaze shifting between the manager, the billionaire, and the boy whose hand was still hanging in the air. In her 7 years working there, she had learned to become invisible, especially to customers like Bennett. "Mr. Thornton, I'm leaving. My shift is over." Her voice sounded calm as she removed her apron and placed it on the tray, her steady hands masking the fire of defiance within her. Then, to everyone's amazement, she smiled at Noah and took his hand, her touch gentle yet firm, as if shielding him from the room's judgment. "I can't dance in an apron." William stood up abruptly. "What do you think you're doing?" Maya held his gaze, her eyes blazing with unspoken resolve. "I'm accepting an invitation, sir." Before anyone could interfere, Noah took a hesitant step forward, his foot dragged painfully across the floor and the metal of his braces screeched. But Maya didn't try to guide him or hurry him. She simply adjusted her own pace to his, her movements syncing with his, creating a silent rebellion against the room's scrutiny. "She's getting fired tomorrow," whispered a woman at the next table. William watched, paralyzed. A sudden memory struck him. Catherine, his late wife, dancing with Noah in the living room. "It's not about perfection," she had said. "It's about connection." The memory stabbed at him, laced with guilt for the years he'd buried his grief in work, neglecting Noah's quiet yearning. As Maya followed Noah's clumsy steps, something in the boy's eyes changed. Fear gave way to intense concentration. Shame gave way to shy pride. For the first time since the accident, he wasn't being guided, helped, or corrected. He was leading. "Mr. Bennett," the manager's voice interrupted his thoughts. "I can assure you this will never happen again. She will be properly disciplined." William didn't respond, his gaze fixed on Noah's fragile triumph, a sight that exposed his own failures as a father. The entire restaurant seemed to wait for his reaction. After all, a man of his power could end anyone's career with a single word. Employees stopped what they were doing, other customers watched with morbid curiosity. Noah's smile, however, was the only sound that echoed in his mind. Maya led the boy back to the table after 3 dance steps. "Thank you for asking me out," she said formally, as if speaking to an adult. "It was an honor." She squeezed his hand lightly, a silent promise to honor his bravery. When she turned to leave, William stopped her. "Wait." His voice sounded different, almost unrecognizable to himself, raw with an emotion he hadn't felt since Catherine's death. "What's your full name?" "Maya Carter, sir." William nodded slowly. "Maya Carter," he repeated, as if memorizing it, his voice softening as if her name held a key to his redemption. Then he took a card from inside his jacket and held it out to her. "My office." Tomorrow at 11:00 a.m., the entire restaurant held its breath. Maya accepted the card without showing any emotion, but her hand trembled slightly, betraying the storm of hope and defiance battling within her. "Dad," Noah called as she walked away. "Why did you do that?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. William watched his son and for a brief moment saw not just the child Catherine had left in his care, but a complete human being whose wants and needs he had systematically ignored for 3 years. He faltered, his usual authority crumbling under Noah's searching gaze. As dinner proceeded in awkward silence, no one noticed Maya's glance before she left. Not out of fear or resignation, but out of a calm determination that contrasted with the storm brewing in William Bennett's eyes. If this story about dignity and transformation is already touching your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow how a simple gesture of respect can spark a silent revolution capable of transforming lives forever. The lobby of Bennett Towers sparkled with its glass and marble walls, reflecting the morning sunlight. Maya Carter immediately felt out of place in her best outfit, a navy blue skirt and white blouse bought on sale. With the people passing by her wore clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Maya Carter to see Mr. Bennett," she said to the receptionist, who examined her with a clinical gaze before making a call, her lips curling in subtle disdain. 22nd floor, Miss Winters will see you." In the elevator, Maya took a deep breath, clutching her worn purse to her chest, whispering to herself, for Noah, for all of them, to steal her resolve. It wasn't fear she felt, it was a quiet determination that came from having faced worse, much worse. Miss Winters was a woman in her 42 with a sharp gaze and impeccable posture. "Mr. Bennett is in a conference call. Please follow me." As she walked through the mirrored hallways, Maya felt the curious stares of the employees. A black woman being escorted through the executive offices was a rare enough occurrence to cause speculation. "He had you fired, didn't he?" Winters asked suddenly when they were alone in a waiting room. "It happens. Powerful clients call and people like you lose their jobs. People like me," hated her glasses. "You know what I mean." Winters adjusted her glasses. "Employees who don't know their place." Maya smiled, not amused, her eyes flashing with a defiant spark. "And where exactly would that be?" Before Winters could answer, her phone rang. "He'll see you now." William Bennett's office took up half the floor. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Boston looked like a distant playground. The man stood, gazing out at the city as if it were his personal property. "Mr. Bennett," Maya greeted him formally, her voice steady despite the weight of his presence. William turned, his face a mask of studied control. "Miss Carter, thank you for coming." He pointed to a chair. "Please." The silence that followed was calculated, a tactic Maya recognized immediately. It was the kind of silence designed to make nervous people talk too much, incriminate themselves. But Maya sat tall, her gaze unwavering, refusing to bend under his authority. "Do you have a background?" William finally asked. "Excuse me?" "Education, college." Maya kept her gaze steady. "Bachelor's degree in child psychology from Boston University." "Incomplete master's degree in special education." Something flashed across William's face. "Surprise, perhaps. And you work as a server." "I work 3 jobs, actually. The restaurant, a community center on weekends, and as a mentor when I can get students." William moved to her table, picking up a folder. "I did some research on you, Miss Carter. I wanted to understand who the person was who," he hesitated, "danced with my son, and gave him a moment of joy I thought was lost forever." He opened the folder, revealing printed photos of a community center. "Bright Steps, you founded that 8 years ago?" Maya sat up straighter in her chair. "I co-founded it with my sister Zoe, a dance program for children with physical disabilities." William leafed through some documents, which is now about to close due to lack of funding. Maya showed no surprise. Of course, he would find all that out in less than 24 hours. "I didn't come here to ask you for money, Mr. Bennett." "Then why did you come?" "Because you invited me." William laughed softly, a joyless sound. "Fair enough." He stood up again, restless, his hands clenching as if wrestling with an unfamiliar vulnerability. "I want you to work for me." Maya blinked, genuinely taken aback. "As a server in your house." William's face hardened. "As a therapeutic companion for Noah." His son's name seemed difficult for him to say, each syllable heavy with years of unspoken regret. Maya noticed how his eyes momentarily drifted to a photo on the table, a smiling woman holding a baby. "I have the best specialists in the country," William continued, "physical therapists, neurologists, psychologists. But what you did yesterday," he paused as if the words betrayed him, "it was just a dance, Mr. Bennett." It was the first time I'd seen him smile since the accident. The admission was painful. "I don't want a dancer for my son." I want someone who can do what you did. Follow, not lead. Maya studied the man in front of her. Beneath the facade of power and control, she saw what others might not. A desperate, lost father. I can pay you 10 times what you're making now. Maya stood up. No. William looked shocked, like someone unaccustomed to hearing that word, his eyes widening, as if she'd shattered his world. I don't work for people who see only my color or my social class before they see my competence, she explained calmly. And I definitely don't work for people who try to buy solutions to emotional problems. William's face flushed. You're turning down an offer that would solve your financial problems out of pride, out of dignity, Maya corrected, her voice cutting through his assumptions with quiet strength, and because your son deserves more than someone hired to pretend to care. She walked to the door, then paused. Noah doesn't need more experts. He needs space to lead his own life, to find his own strength without someone dictating his every move. You don't know my son. No, Maya agreed, but I know people like him, people whose physical limitations are nothing compared to the invisible cages we build around them. She took a card from her purse and placed it on the table. Right Steps classes on Mondays and Wednesdays, 5:00 p.m. If you'd like to bring Noah, the first class is free. As Maya left, she passed Winters, who had obviously been listening behind the door. You just turned down an offer from William Bennett, she whispered incredulously. Are you crazy? Maya smiled, her eyes gleaming with a quiet triumph. Maybe, but I'd rather be crazy than be property. The following Tuesday, Maya was at the reception desk of the community center when Zoe, her sister and co-founder of the project, came running up. There's a Rolls-Royce parked outside, she whispered, nervously adjusting her hijab. And you won't believe who's inside. Through the window, Maya saw the luxurious car. Noah was in the back seat looking anxiously out the window. William remained in the driver's seat, his hands still on the steering wheel, as if fighting an internal battle, his knuckles white with the weight of his decision. He's not coming in, Zoe predicted. Men like him don't come to places like this. Maya smiled, remembering Noah's gaze during those brief moments of dancing. Don't underestimate the power of a determined son. As they watched, the car door opened. Noah got out slowly, adjusting his gadgets, his face alight with a quiet resolve. Then, to everyone's surprise, William got out too. The billionaire looked out of place in his casual pants and sweater, an obvious attempt to dress less formally but still screaming privilege. I told you he'd come, Maya murmured, more to herself. Zoe stared at her. What did you do? Maya didn't answer, but her eyes sparkled with a secret that not even her sister fully knew. In her tiny apartment in Roxbury, hidden under her bed, was a notebook filled with notes about children like Noah and men like William Bennett. Years of observation, research, and a plan that had begun with a simple acceptance of an invitation to dance. What William Bennett didn't know, what he couldn't imagine in his world of glass towers and endless bank accounts, was that Maya Carter wasn't just a server who had agreed to dance with his son. She was a woman with a mission, and his empire of isolation and privilege was about to face its greatest challenge. The simple truth that some of the greatest lessons in life cannot be bought. They must be lived. Bright Steps operated out of an old community warehouse. Handmade posters decorated the walls with phrases like, "Your rhythm, your rules," and "Every move counts." When William and Noah entered, children with various types of mobility devices practiced free movements to the sound of a light beat. Mr. Bennett, Maya approached, wearing simple clothes with the program logo. Welcome. Noah watched the children in awe. A girl in a wheelchair spun in precise circles, while a boy with a prosthetic leg created a sequence of steps. It looks chaotic, William commented, visibly uncomfortable, his arms crossed tightly as if shielding himself from the unfamiliar energy. There is structure, Maya replied. It's just not the one you recognize. She turned to Noah. Would you like to join in? The boy nodded enthusiastically but looked at his father, hesitant, seeking approval he wasn't sure he'd get. Go on, William said tensely. I'll be right here. As Maya guided Noah to the group, Zoe approached William and offered him a chair. The first day is always the hardest, she commented, for the parents, not the kids. This isn't therapy, William argued. "I hired the best rehabilitation specialists." "And how has that been working for Noah?" Zoe asked gently, her words piercing through his defensive armor. The studio door opened. An older woman entered, leaning on an ornate cane. She had gray hair in elegant braids and a commanding presence. "Dr. Elaine Mercer," Zoe whispered, "neuroscientist specializing in brain plasticity, retired from Harvard." The woman greeted several children before noticing William. "Mr. Bennett, you've rejected my research proposal 3 times in the last 3 years." "Dr. Mercer, I didn't expect to see you here. I oversee the research program," she explained. "We're studying how non-directive approaches to movement affect neural reconfiguration in children with motor challenges." "Research," William frowned. "I thought this was just a community dance class." Maya returned, leaving Noah exploring movements with another child. Bright Steps is a pilot motor rehabilitation program based on the theory of movement autonomy, she explained. "We integrate adaptive dance with neuroscientific principles." "Why do you work as a server if you lead a research program?" "Because we don't have adequate funding yet, and because people like you rejected us 3 times." The penny dropped. "You were Dr. Mercer's assistant on the proposals," co-author, Dr. Mercer corrected. "Maya has an incomplete master's degree because she had to leave college to take care of her sister, but her theoretical work is groundbreaking. You knew who I was at the restaurant," William concluded, his voice low, a mix of accusation and reluctant admiration. "From the moment you walked in," Maya confirmed, "and when Noah got up to dance, I recognized the opportunity to show, not tell." "Was it staged, the dance?" "Absolutely not. Noah chose to get up. I chose to follow." A group of reporters entered the studio. William immediately tensed, his shoulders stiffening as he sensed a trap. "All the way to retirement." "What's this, part 2 of the plan?" Maya smiled slightly, her expression unapologetic, challenging his control. Zoe showed William a newly published article. "Revolutionary motor rehabilitation methodology shows promising results." "We published our first results today," Dr. Mercer explained, "and we invited the press. You used my son for a public relations stunt." William's voice was pure ice, his eyes narrowing with a mix of betrayal and respect. Maya led him into a side room where photos of dozens of children adorned the walls, each with handwritten progress statistics. On the last wall was an empty frame. "What's that?" he asked. "Our future. The full rehabilitation center we could build if we had the resources. 1,000 children a year instead of 50. You orchestrated all this," William muttered. "The dance, the meeting, bringing me here on press day. I saw an opportunity and took it. 5 months ago when you canceled our meeting without reading the proposal, I promised myself I'd find a way to make you see the potential you dismissed so carelessly." "Maya?" Zoe interrupted. "It's Noah." They rushed back. Noah was in the center of the room, surrounded by other children. Someone had turned off the music, and everyone watched in silence. The boy had removed one of his braces and was trying to balance on just one support. "Noah," William started forward, but Maya stopped him. "Wait," she whispered. "Watch." Noah took a deep breath, focused, his face a mask of determination, as if proving something to himself and the world. Then, to everyone's amazement, especially his father's, he took a complete step without full support. It was small, shaky, but entirely his. The children cheered, camera flashes went off. William's face, usually composed and unreadable, was now exposed with unshed tears glistening in his eyes, his breath catching as he witnessed a miracle he'd never dared hope for. "That's why we created Bright Steps," Maya said softly. "It's not about perfect steps. It's about first steps on your own." William watched his son, not as a problem to be managed, but as a complete person, discovering his own strength. "This could have been done without manipulating me," he said finally, his voice thick with conflicted emotions. "It could have been if you had answered our calls or read our proposals 3 times. The reporters noticed William. A murmur grew as Noah, oblivious to the tension, continued practicing his new step with an expression of pure concentration. William Bennett was cornered. Before him lay 2 options: withdraw in anger, confirming to the press his reputation as cold and calculating, or embrace the moment his son had created. Between the power he had always wielded and the freedom his son needed, William found himself in unfamiliar territory, one where neither his money nor his influence defined the next step. The man who controlled every aspect of his life now faced a choice that no amount of wealth could buy. His gaze shifted between his smiling son and the reporters waiting for his reaction. Humility was not a virtue in his vocabulary, but as he saw the transformation on Noah's face, something inside him began to break. The orchestra of power and privilege he was accustomed to now played a different tune, and he had to decide, would he continue conducting, or would he learn to follow? William Bennett faced the reporters waiting for his reaction. His son had just taken a step on his own in front of the cameras, and Maya Carter had skillfully led him to this impossible moment. "Mr. Bennett," a reporter approached. "Could you comment on your presence at Bright Steps today? Is it true that your foundation rejected funding this program 3 times? William glanced at Noah, who was still practicing his new step, oblivious to the political tension. Then, to everyone's surprise, especially Maya's, he smiled. A rare, genuine smile that softened his hardened features. "You know what's hardest for someone in my position?" William addressed the reporter, but spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear, admitting, "When we're wrong." A stunned silence filled the room, the weight of his confession echoing through the crowd. "The Bennett Foundation is pleased to announce a commitment to fully fund Bright Steps for the next 5 years and to build a permanent rehabilitation center based on the methodology developed by Dr. Mercer." And camera flashes exploded. Zoe let out a cry of surprise. "On one condition," he added, watching Maya tense up, "that Miss Carter retain complete autonomy over the program and its methodology. No corporate interference." 3 months later, bulldozers were clearing the ground for the new Bright Steps Rehabilitation Center. The project wasn't the most luxurious the Bennett Foundation had ever funded, but it was the most innovative, with every space designed with direct input from the children and their families. Maya supervised the construction frequently, but never alone. Noah showed up regularly, sometimes bringing other children with him. And to the staff's continued surprise, William Bennett also showed up, silently observing the progress, his presence a quiet testament to a transformed man. "I never thought you'd actually show up at board meetings," Maya commented one afternoon as they reviewed the plans. "I never thought I'd have to study neuroplasticity at 52, William replied, rubbing his tired eyes, a faint smile revealing a newfound humility. In front of him was a scientific article marked with post-it notes. "But here we are." Maya looked at the man curiously. "Is this part of your public penance, or do you really care?" "Noah asked to have his second brace removed last week." "I know. He told me. His previous physical therapist said that would be impossible for at least 2 years, Maya smiled. "But you fired her, remember? Because you told me she was wrong." And she was. Maya pointed to a photo of Noah balancing with only one crutch. "He's progressing faster than any traditional medical prediction." "Why did you never accept my apology?" William asked suddenly. "Because you never apologized. You redirected resources, changed policies, funded our program." "That's not an apology, it's compensation." William nodded slowly. "Fair again," his eyes lingering on her with a respect he hadn't shown before. At the opening ceremony 6 months later, the contrast with that night in the restaurant couldn't have been greater. The huge adaptive space was filled with children with various types of mobility devices, all moving freely. In the center of the main hall, Noah, now wearing only a lightweight brace on his left leg, led a small choreographed routine with 3 other children. His movements were still limited, but they flowed with a confidence no doctor had predicted. William watched from a distance, not interfering, his heart swelling with a pride he hadn't known he could feel. "He doesn't need you to hold him anymore," Maya said, approaching quietly. "No," William agreed, "but he still needs me to be around. Crucial difference." William turned to face her. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice carrying the weight of a man who'd learned to listen. "For what exactly?" "For teaching me to follow." A reporter approached. "Mr. Bennett? How does it feel to see your son's progress?" William looked at Noah, who was now helping a younger girl find her balance. Proud, not of what he's overcome, but of what he's created for others. And what's been the biggest lesson you've learned on this journey? William Bennett, the man who had once been known only for his financial empire, looked directly into the camera. That true leaders aren't those who guide others down the path they believe is right, but those who have the courage to follow when someone shows them a better way. A year later, the Bright Steps program expanded to 3 new cities. Maya received the Pediatric Rehabilitation Innovation Award, and her methodology began to be implemented in hospitals across the country. Noah, now using only a light cane on difficult days, enrolled in regular school and became a youth spokesperson for the program, inspiring other children to find their own pace. And William learned the hardest and most valuable lesson of all, that true power does not lie in controlling every move, but in knowing when it is time to take a step back and let others lead the way. In a world where powerful people rarely change their perspectives, and where those without power often remain in the shadows, the story of William, Maya, and Noah reminds us that true transformation occurs when we cross the invisible boundaries that separate us. When a billionaire learns from a server, when a father follows in his son's footsteps. If this story about how a simple gesture of dignity changed lives forever touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to our channel, because we believe that the most profound revolutions don't start with grand manifestos or vast fortunes. They start when someone has the courage to take an authentic first step, and someone else has the wisdom